Today on Jake of All Trades, Kirk and I scour the internet for some of the worst financial decisions that people are willing to admit. That's coming up next.
From the streets of San Antonio straight to your wallet, it's Jake's 2 cents on Jake of All Trades.
All right, welcome back. My name is Kirk, and I'm not a financial expert.
But I'm Jake. I am the financial expert. And together, Kirk and I talk about financial planning. We talk about the economy. We look at financial articles, all with the express purpose of helping our listeners build wealth both today and into the future.
And one way to build wealth is to not make really bad financial decisions.
Exactly.
And so we discovered this website. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, called Reddit, which I'm only kidding, of course. But
yeah,
if you've ever explored Reddit, you know that people put anything you can imagine, any scenario you could possibly fathom, and a million more. Someone has expressed on Reddit, and people have commented on it. And there's a lot in the financial category, right? The category of like what you've done with your money, which is an interesting, but not done. And so we thought a fun one to start with. And sometimes, it could be tragic. And who knows, maybe we'll do even a series of these because they are real concrete things that people actually experience, right? So we often talk about the big principles and the life lessons and things like that, which are important, but what does it really look like in the day-to-day flesh of life? And that's what we wanted to talk about with this episode and maybe a lot of future episodes. So we're taking Reddit comments and Reddit things on the worst financial decision of your life. And this is asking old people. This is the other thing about Reddit is you can ask whoever you want. So it's like, hey, I'm 20. I want to know from an 80-year-old, what's the worst financial decision you've ever made?
Yeah.
And that's
the community, right? Because I'm still new to Reddit, so I'm just understanding.
That's the community,
so our community is ask old people. And the question was...
And by the way, I'm almost old people in that kind of...
I think we're both almost old people.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. Yeah. This is like only 5 years away from where I am. Son of a...
Yeah, so it's subjective. What's the worst financial decision you've ever made? Okay, so... let's just start with some of these because they're like, some of them are funny. Some of them are like, wow, yeah. So this first one that we came across, worst financial but best decision. Walking away from my house in the mountains that overlooked a very famous lake in order to get full custody of my child.
Yeah.
So that's tough because if you think about it in the context of the original question, the worst financial decision you've ever made, but it was like probably the best decision this person made for their life, which tells you there can be a disconnect between financial priorities and life priorities.
Yeah. And that's something we talk about on the show a lot is that making financial decisions can't be your only decider for life, right? It's more like a blueprint or a helpful guide in thinking about your life that's essential, but you sometimes have to weigh other values in your life. And this is a good example on a very, very real level of like, this house probably was worth a couple $1 million or something, right? Like if it's overlooking a beautiful, famous lake, like, I don't know, the Great Lakes or something like that. I don't know. And it's, high value property. And this, I think it was a female who did this, had to walk away from that in order to have full custody of her child. That's, that might hinder her retirement, maybe even the college fund for the kid to some degree, but she gets to raise her kid, right? Like that's a big, I think these types of things are why it's, the financial decisions are not everything, and they're important guides to think about in many aspects of your life. But this one's almost a no-brainer, right?
Right. Yeah. And why, planning is so individualized, because giving blanket advice to that person would have been like, that's the craziest thing ever. Why would you give up such a high value asset? But you have to take the personal situation into consideration.
Well, yeah. And like our lives are not financial statements.
Yeah.
I think that's one way to think about it. So if you were to look at a financial statement, do an accounting for this person, and they're like, I'm going to sell this. I'm going I'm going to walk away from this house. So I assume there's a kind of loss of the house, not even a sale. So maybe the husband's like requiring it or something. I don't know. Or the ex. I don't know what's happening in the situation, of course. But if you look at that from an accounting standpoint, you're like, no, there's no trade-off unless you're getting paid $5.8 million for this house.
Right.
The answer is no, right? That's the financials answer. Right. But again, there's certain things in life that are more important than the money. And we all know that, but I do think there's a subtle fear that we've expressed on this show that people have about financial planners in particular, right? That that they would only look at you as a financial statement.
Right.
And they don't. That's not a good financial planner. A good financial planner is a guide to make these decisions. And not all decisions are this clear, but still would maybe lean toward those types of life over financial
choice. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
okay, let's do another one.
Okay.
So this one is a classic example of youth wasted on the young. When I was a young adult, I had a good paying union job. I was balling. Some new townhouses in town were just built and they were selling for $89,000. My dad did his best to tell me I should buy one. It's the one time in my life I wish I listened to him. Instead, I bought an expensive car and moved into an apartment. While I loved that car, I'd be much better off today if I had bought the townhouse. I'm not doing bad or anything, but man, if I'd have bought that instead, I'd be pretty well off. Those same townhouses are worth something like $400,000 today.
Yeah, and all the comments below were like, they're like, oh, sorry.
Like, yeah, that's just like you reflect back and like, but maybe he had really good memories in that car. Maybe, he got to, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of almost the opposite of what we just read, right? Like this is the same kind of thing on the flip side where, like it would be different if he had to invest in his son's college future or something like that. But I don't know. I think in this case, it's pretty clear cut that he probably made the wrong decision. And that's why that's why this Reddit is about asking old people what they thought was their regret, because an old person has that perspective on, yeah, that was a fun car, but I'd much rather have in my 30s and 40s an extra $300,000 to play with. Right. That would have been much better for my overall 80, 90, 100 years that you have on this planet, which is what financial decisions can help you with. Right. Is that I have, and that car, maybe that car helped him get a lady here and there. And he has fond memories of that. That's possible.
Yeah.
I don't think a townhouse would hurt that though. And,
no, it probably would have helped too. It might have even been the right kind of lady.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And I think it's like, there's nothing wrong with cars, but that's not how this is framed. So this is framed as a decision between a nicer car and a really good townhome that had upward mobility in terms, or upward investment, right?
Proper investment. Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, there's just no way to recover from that. It's kind of like that. You have to learn from, that's kind of why I like this thread. Because if young people are looking at this, now they have a whole new perspective to think about when they're presented with an opportunity that may sound boring today, right? It's boring and stay safe. I don't want to buy a house, but now you see like the long-term consequences of those decisions from a real person. I think it's really powerful. So but I think he probably made the wrong choice.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he thinks he did. Later in life, right?
Yeah.
Now the question is, in the moment, did he feel that? And then how do you weigh that type of thing? Right. So in the moment, he enjoyed the car.
Right.
So that's part of the challenge of life, I think, is getting that long-term perspective and making while still enjoying life.
Yeah. That the instant, the moment, the time within, right?
So here's maybe the way to think about it. Or one way to think about it is that's why you have a financial planner, but that's also why you have older people in your life that you ask these questions. Maybe he still would make that decision knowing this, but maybe just the knowing is enough to change your mind when you're younger, which is why the important thing is thinking, right?
Yeah.
And not making impulse decisions for the sake of, so that, I guess that's the real problem, is making impulse decisions thoughtlessly.
Right.
But there's a lot of information on the internet. There's financial planners. If you're making this kind of money, you should have someone in your life who's a good guide to help you make the decisions to enjoy your life today and in the future.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like, it's so important to have those people in your life that are not your parents. Cause I think that probably fed into
yeah.
right? Like, but the fact that it was his dad telling him is like, I'm going to do the opposite, period. Like, I am not about to listen to you old man.
I think that's super wise. Yeah. Like, especially when you're young, it's hard to listen to your parents just because to some degree you've been listening to them your whole life without a choice, right? As you're growing up. And so when they give you sound advice, it's hard for you to take that advice. But yeah, if you had somebody in your life, other people in your life that were, helpful, that might change. I remember hearing advice of every person in their 20s should spend some real time in hospice care.
Oh,
to like learn.
Right.
To help the older people too, but also you learn a lot by being there. You learn about regrets. You learn about life. You learn because you're seeing people at the end of their lives and they're thinking about their life. And now I've never done that, but I always thought that idea was a good one. And it would be something to do, to spend some time with, you
would definitely learn some things, I'm sure of it.
For sure.
Yikes. Okay. Let's do another one. This one hurts. This one hurts. This one feels personal. Okay. I sold a car to a close friend for way under market value so she could get to work. Of course, she sold it for market value and used the money to not work.
Have you ever encountered this?
Not a good friend.
Yeah. Have you ever encountered this yourself? Something like this? Something like this? Well, I mean, I guess, like the idea of giving money to a friend and it not working out.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the other concept that's just so is like that she profited off of it. Like, not only did she get the benefit of purchasing a car for way under market value, then she used it as an opportunity to sell it to make money off of it. Right. Which I guess, there are people out there that they need money from you, but then they go and do something with it and don't pay you back. I mean, I've watched plenty of Judge Judy's where somebody lent somebody money and then they took it and they were going to start a business or something. And you were going to get your residuals back and then they just disappeared. So you have to be really careful when you're giving money. I say, don't do it. Just don't get involved with that with friends.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it's over $100, you should just say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, unless so I do think there's exceptions, by the way. I do think but the challenge is I think most of us are not very good judge of characters. And so we will like somebody and they're actually not a good person, which is something I think we all need to work on individually. We need to be better judges of character. Because I do think there are people that you can do this, that you can give money to and they will pay you back.
Yeah, they exist. Yeah.
But I think those people tend to not need that type of help.
Right. Yeah.
So they're not as common, but sometimes they do exist and, you can be surprised, but you have to be a judge of character. But even if you are a good judge of character, and it can't be a feeling, it can't be like they're my friend no, it has to be like you have actual this is what it means to be a good judge of character. You have evidence that in the past they have taken money and they have done something with it and they've paid it back. You have to have that evidence, like like you've seen them do this yourself, not just heard them say this. You have seen, and that's what people a lot of times don't want to do. They don't want to,
or maybe even if it's you've never given them money before, but they've demonstrated qualities of a person that would not do something like this. So they helped you move and they were the only person that was there for you, and you know they sacrificed something other than money, but time or effort or expended energy on you. And so in a way you've seen that they've given in a sense, right? Even if it's not actually money, because you've still gotta, in order to try it, you got to trust it for the first time.
Yeah.
So you just have to be so careful with this.
Well, and also like you need to, if you're going to do it from a financial standpoint, you just have to be prepared to lose the money and just assume like,
you
ask yourself, like, if I lost this, would that be financially detrimental? And if the answer is no, and you still think they're a good person, you could try. And then one way to think about it is like, I saw this in a mafia movie once. Like one way to think about it is you basically spent, in this case, let's say $3,000-$4,000 to rid yourself of somebody who has a bad character.
Yeah.
And now because they're never going to come back.
Right.
Right. And because every time, if they come back, you say, hey, I'm fine. I'm happy to have drinks with you and talk again, but I want my money first.
Yeah.
Right. And just, and then they'll never come back, or they'll give you their money and apologize. And maybe we'll have a good friend and your money back. Right. So
probably not.
Probably not. Well, I don't, again, you're probably right.
Yeah.
But just be prepared to lose the money.
Be prepared. That's absolutely solid advice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's do another one. Okay. So this person said, I have several to choose from, but by far the worst was around 45 years ago. I inherited some stocks, quite a tidy sum. The stocks were completely bulletproof and have split countless times, along with forming at least a dozen new corporations that handle a portion of the original business. I don't even know if I'm able to convey the depth of my stupidity. If I had hung on to those stocks, I could have retired early and been a multimillionaire. Instead, I sold it, and I can't even tell you what I did with the money. My life has been fine. I'm retiring soon with enough to live comfortably. It's one of the major regrets of my life, if not the major one.
Yeah. I mean, the study of people dying is that the number one thing is, regrets about not pursuing a love and financial regrets, right? Like this.
Yeah.
I think these are the dominant ones. I didn't invest in this thing. Mm-hmm. And now the question is, what's the actual lesson we as younger people can get from this, right? So that's the real question here, because one, he lived a good life, it sounds like, but he just wasn't a multimillionaire, which would have been a different life for him.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that's what he wanted. And he made a mistake. And honestly, I think all of us probably, like if I would have invested Bitcoin at the right time and then sold at the right time, I could be a millionaire right now with actual cash.
Right. I mean, so I think like age plays a big role, a big factor in this whole scenario, because he's saying 45 years ago, if he's about to retire, then let's assume at the high end, he's 70, right? So he was in his 20s when he inherited this money. And that's like winning the lottery, right? Your concept of how stocks appreciate over time and like the opportunities that sum of money would give you, I don't even know if you're capable of conceptualizing that at that age, right? Some people might be, but I think it's not uncommon that you would be immediately like, oh, I'm going on vacation. Maybe I buy my first house. Maybe I'm buying a new car. I'm going to do, all these things because I have all this money. But the concept of stocks versus just money are two very different things. And so in hindsight, now he can look back and see like, oh, well, that's how businesses develop. That's how, quality businesses are run. And as a stockholder, you benefit from that over the long term. But I don't know that it's really tough to put that in front of a 20-year-old and expect them to make decisions that money's going to last. Because it probably, if it was a tidy sum, when you're 20, you probably feel like that money's going to last forever, right? If it's like $3 million of stock,
oh, you think it would have
last forever?
Oh, yeah. So you're right. So like he's saying he could have retired a multimillionaire because it grew over time. So it was probably, I was thinking it was maybe a couple 100,000 45 years ago. And then it would have grown to millions of dollars. And
that's possible too, right?
Yeah. Which would have been another thing. I mean, I'm trying to think of what would have happened, what I would have done if I would have gotten, let's say, $1 million amount of stocks when I was 20, right?
Yeah.
And this is stocks in companies that, so I know I would definitely investigate the companies. Even at 20, I would have done that. Even at 18, I would have studied the companies as much as possible to see what their benefits were. There's no way I would have sold all the stocks. It sounds like he sold a lot, if not all of them. There's no way I would have done that.
I'm thinking he sold them over time, but like in a short period of time. So like maybe over the next 10 years, he did a lot of living over the next 10 years and just, sold them and sold them and sold them.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to imagine. Like, yeah, I guess what would you have done when you were 20? And yeah, what would you have done?
I think I would have paid somebody to tell me about the companies first, because I don't think I would have had the capacity to understand.
So you'd sell some stock to pay them because you have no money.
To pay them, right? I have no money, so I would think it would be a wise decision to like pay somebody a couple $1,000 to do like an analysis for me, and then tell me like, okay, the quality of these stocks and whatnot. Understand what stocks are and how they work, and then I think with that general sense of knowledge, I would splurge on something right away. So I probably would have bought a car because I love cars. And then I think I would have probably held on to them because I think there would have been enough information out there that you can understand just how valuable this is at this time of your life. I think
that now this is 45 years ago.
45 years ago.
So this is before the internet. Yeah. This is, so it's, I can understand like, if you're kind of alone and you get this, in the world in a sense, and you don't have a community you can ask questions of, like on Reddit, like, on Reddit, if I got this, I'd ask everybody what they thought I should do so I can make the decision. I think I would probably make the decision you made. I do think I might've sold more stock than you would have, because I really wanted to be a fiction writer. And I think I might have pursued that more and spent more money to do that rather than having all the jobs that I had to have, which might have been a financial mistake, right?
If it didn't pay off, but even if it didn't pay off, you'd be here today and be like, I still got to pursue that.
Well, but I would not have sold all the stocks no matter what.
Right.
That never would have happened. That I know. I would have sold no more than, 30, 40% of them at the most. Right. So if it was like $1 million worth of stocks, I would have cashed out maybe a couple 100,000 max.
Yeah.
I think I could have been responsible enough to do that. I think.
Well, I think it is important to keep in context just how long ago this was. And the fact that there was no internet means these were physical shares, right? These are like paper stock shares.
Oh, so he's like holding this in his house, looking at $1 million.
Like $1 million of paper, right? And I'm sure there was some type of endorphins that happen when you take that stock certificate to the bank and cash it in and you get cash, right? That's totally different than like liquidating shares in your investment account online. It's just a different thing psychologically. So
I'd want to know a little bit more too, because I want to, like, what's the situation? So if he's getting this money, if he gets into financial trouble in a year or two, would his parents not be able to help him? Like, are they the ones who gave him the stock, or did maybe his parents died and he got all this stock from them or something?
Right.
And so he had no guidance in that, what I'm saying? Like, cause if his parents had this kind of stock, they must have had some money.
Right. And they must have been they would have known stuff. Right.
Yeah. So like, I'd want to know how he inherited this.
Seems kind of logical that he got it from parents, because usually it doesn't come from grandparents. It goes down
sometimes grandparents will skip their kids. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I hate my kids, but my grandkids,
and then if we tie this one into the other one, he probably got it from grandma and grandpa, and he's like, yeah, I know my parents suck, so I'm not going to go ask them what to do with this. I'm just going to live my life with
Yeah. It's a good question. I think it's a really interesting thought experiment of what would you do? So asking you, the audience, what would you do if you inherited at 20 $1 million worth of stocks? and
Stocks.
preferably stocks in companies that are potentially growth. But he doesn't know that either. That's the other challenge.
No.
So those stocks could have gone to zero.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
That's
that's why
the risk. That's the risk.
That's why I definitely would have taken some out.
Yeah.
For sure. I would have sold some so I could have some money to play with and do certain things with to pursue my dreams. But I don't think I would have bought a car like you. I mean, maybe one that worked, but I think I hope I would have pursued my passion.
Yeah. I totally would have bought a brand new ridiculous car. Totally would have done it.
You crazy.
I have no self-control. Okay. Last one. I think we have time for one more. All right. Oh, this one's going to fire you up for sure. Getting a liberal arts degree from a very expensive university. If I'd gotten an engineering degree, it would have been worth it. But I was only 16 when I applied. What did I know?
Yeah, I mean, like, I chose this one actually because I thought, like, I've talked about this on the show all the time.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have different calculations today about what you're spending on liberal arts or any degree nowadays. Like, there needs to be some kind of calculation that schools, or maybe maybe this is a business idea, is someone creates a software program through ChatGPT that's a career counselor that helps people ask questions to ChatGPT in such a way, or, that to help them make a decision of what's the real future value of this, even in a best case scenario. Right.
I think they have that information.
Oh, it's there, but you need like a person to talk to help you through this decision.
Yeah.
Because it's such an emotional decision. Like, part of why you go to university is because, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. And it sounds fun and you get to meet people, and, everyone talks about I'll just say the bedroom experiences, right? Like that's what it's like, exploring yourself, right? I'll just try to make it more family friendly, but that's like why when you're 18 and you hear that,
all those things,
yeah, but that's like, I think that's a real reason why most 18-year-olds go to college. That's at least that's on their mind. Even if some of them are thinking of the future, I think that's a huge motivator of doing that, of like, oh, I'm gonna live down the hall from all these girls or guys, right? Like,
but then why pursue, once you're there, something that's not lucrative?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And like, is it just to do that and have a liberal arts degree, which isn't going to make you money more than likely? And that's actually not true. Like, you can make money in that field if you're good and you know what you're doing, but I don't know if the degree is what leads to that. I think it's
that's a good
it's not the same thing.
Not always your skill set, right? You might just be like really talented writer, or a really talented, something that puts you a step above everybody else, regardless of whether you had a degree or not.
Now, here's the only exception to that. I do think there are some fields, and this is why I think having a good counselor, and a counselor who's not somebody who's a counselor because, I'm going to get in trouble for this because they want to be a counselor, but someone who is in the field doing the thing you want to do at the highest levels. That's what a good career counselor, I think, looks like. So, like, if you want to be a screenwriter, you need to have a screenwriter in Hollywood who's been doing this for 20 years, who's made a high level living at it for 20 years straight.
More of a mentor, not a counselor.
Yeah. Like, and I think that's more needed, especially in the liberal arts area, because it's such a quagmire of like what's going to happen. And like, there's no avenue. You don't need that as like a computer engineer. The path is pretty clear, right? Even today with all the craziness, you could say like, here are the different things. Here's the different price, what I'm probably going to expect, even if in terms of money, even if it goes down a little bit, you're not going to get nothing if you get a computer degree right now, programming degree or something like that.
Right.
So, or same thing with being a financial planner. You could probably figure out kind of what you can make in general in that field. Or an accountant, you can always like go into being an accountant or something. And there's easy figures of what you're going to make. That's not true in this way.
With some of these others, more subjective
Yeah.
subject matters. Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
I think the mentor piece is huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
But also you may not be willing to listen if you have your heart set, right? You're 16,
Yeah, but
you're 18, you may not be willing to listen.
But that's why I think a good mentor is someone who's doing what you want to do, and they wouldn't tell you not to do it, right? They would tell you to do it, but they would help you. If they're good, they would help you be realistic about how to do it.
Yeah.
Like you need the how. That's the challenging part.
Mhm.
And, but yeah, I mean, even that can be still you could still get bad mentors, and mentors can have bad, views of their own or bad
Right.
motivations. Even they may not want
Yeah.
to see you succeed sometimes. Right.
Right.
Like it's I don't know. So it's
They may see you as
complicated.
a threat or
Yeah. Like this young buck take my job. Get out of here. He's not. You
So
ain't
going back to something you said earlier, we all need to be better judges of character.
Yeah. Well, that's really hard when it's a mentor and you're 20 and he's or she's like 40s, 50s or something and high up in an industry you really want to be a part of. Like,
right.
Judging that character, you don't have the experience to judge that character.
Yeah. Except your gut. Sometimes your gut is a powerful thing. It'll tell you, she's
That's
shady.
Good point. Good point.
All right. We could go on all day. I think we're going to have to do a part 2 of worst financial decisions.
Oh yeah. This is like just the first half of the first page.
Yeah.
This is like 4 comments total that we looked at. There's so much.
I hope
and
you
what's
learned
yours?
Something. Yeah. We want to know what's yours because we want to hear from our community too. And eventually we'll share Kirk and I have some things too that we can certainly share. And we're not even old yet.
I'm technically close. I'm only 5 years away from what they considered old, which is 1980 or earlier.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the cutoff. Okay.
Yeah, it said please don't post unless you're born 1980 or earlier.
Oh, okay.
So you're pretty far from that.
Yeah.
I'm 5 years.
Okay. I'm 9. All right. We got this. Okay.
Yeah.
Youth. I feel the youth. All right, guys. Well, that wraps up this episode of Jake of All Trades. Be sure to check us out on social media by searching for @Jakes2Cents and check out the blog at jakes2cents.com. Take care. We'll see you next time.